Good evening. I'm going to call this meeting of the Santa Fe Public School Board to order. It is 5:30 and it's October 1st. Happy October. Let's note for the record that student board member Harvey McGinnis is excused, please. Thank you very much. And if we could now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and the salute to the New Mexico flag in English and in Spanish, as well as the acknowledgement of tribal land. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Puro fidelidad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Saludo la bandera del Estado de Nuevo México, el símbolo de amistad perfecta entre culturas unidas. We acknowledge the original people of the land, the Tsuki Pueblo people, and other tribal nations, and ask them to walk with us today as we share and learn together. Thank you very much. We are on to item 1D, the approval of the agenda. May I have a motion?
I move.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. All those in favor of approving the agenda?
Can we have discussion?
Sure.
Can we change, I know that I contacted you at 2:06 and I'm sorry, but can we change the thing about, because I wanted to have it on the item that I had that we didn't put on, and regarding schools and all that stuff. Because I felt like it was very timely and that we should address the people that may or may not be at public forum. Can we not have that be at noon? Can we make it later that day? On a given day if we want something on board discussion?
Okay. I mean, he's asking whether, and I think we're on the approval of the agenda, so, you know.
Well, I'll do it later. I'll do it under board discussion. Okay.
Okay. He's asking about the deadline for when board discussion items are submitted.
Oh, okay.
Because I thought something was going to be there and it's not, and
Oh, okay.
we had a little texting war. And
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. On to item 2, the introduction of the interpreter. Mr. Martinez.
Good afternoon, Board President Noble, board members, Superintendent Dr. Garcia, and community members. My name is Germán Martinez, and I'll be providing any services for translation. If anybody would like those services, please raise your hand and I'll provide those services in the back of the room. Buenas tardes, Presidente Noble, miembros de la Junta Escolar y Superintendente Doctora García. Mi nombre es Germán Martínez y serviré como intérprete. Si alguien ocupa esos servicios, por favor, levante la mano y le serviré atrás de la sala. Gracias.
Thank you very much. We have bells. Thank you very much. And to answer Vice President Price's question, no, I think we've gone to every other board meeting that we do a union update. We're on to item 3, the school board showcase. We have the Ortiz Middle School 6th grade choir under the direction of Caleb Heaton. Do you want to introduce them for us? Please, thank you. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. This is the 6th grade Ortiz choir, 7th period class. Amber, come on up. And we will be singing Homeward Bound by Jay Althouse.
Thank you very much. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. Thank you very much. You were. You were loud, you were on pitch, it was beautiful.
We were
Really,
just saying it sounded like a little choir of angels singing to us. That was beautiful. Thank you.
thank you very much. Okay, continuing with the school board showcase, we have another thing from Ortiz Middle School, the Building Bridges Project in conjunction with the New Mexico Department of Transportation. And Carl Krings is the teacher who's going to tell us more about that. Welcome.
Good evening, Superintendent Dr. Garcia, President Noble, and members of the board. My name is Carl Krings, and I have proudly taught at Ortiz Middle School for 20 years. I would like to thank the members of the board, Dr. Garcia, for this opportunity to speak tonight at tonight's meeting. The idea for this bridge building project started as a collaboration and discussion about how to start this school year with an engaging, hands-on STEM activity that would also address the New Mexico STEM-ready engineering science standards. As planning went on, a suggestion was made to contact the New Mexico Department of Transportation to collaborate with experts in the community. After a few emails and calls, I was guided to Kathy Crowell at New Mexico Department of Transportation. She was excited about the project to help implement she was excited about the opportunity to help implement our project. She coordinated with the engineers of the bridge building department to speak with our students. Emboldened by her positive reaction, I followed my teacher instincts and asked for free stuff in the form of 27,000 popsicle sticks and 134-ounce bottles of glue. In the end, New Mexico Department of Transportation provided all the materials and guest engineers to come speak with all of our students and in all the grade levels about their designs and careers in engineering. This was a total of 597 students exposed to local engineering talent and expertise. The success of our students is directly attributed to, the success of our students, some of the bridges exceeding a weight of 45.54 kilograms, or that's 100 pounds to you non-science types, can be directly attributed to this community involvement. This will hopefully set the course for future collaborations with other community organizations and continued collaborations with the New Mexico Department of Transportation. And now I'd like to turn it over to Dalia Orozco and David Lopez, two of our 6th grade students, to share our experiences, or their experiences with this project.
Good evening, Dr. Garcia, President Noble, and members of the board. My name is Dalia Orozco. I am a 6th grade student at Ortiz Middle School. My science teacher is Ms. Melendres. My experience doing the bridge project was difficult, but at the same time, it was fun. It was hard because we could only use 150 popsicle sticks and 1 small bottle of glue. I asked if I could use hot glue, and the teacher said no, because the bridge might break easier and separate the sticks. Our teacher showed us how much 1 stick was able to hold using the sticks in different positions. It was fun because we worked in groups. We took a great role working and dividing our work. One of the things we experienced was when 2 engineers came to help us to get an idea on how to build and design our bridges. They taught us the names and parts of the bridges. They explained the role of an engineer, architect, and designer. We took our job really serious. Our team designed a bridge that held 148 pounds or 67.6 7 kilograms. They, this experience inspired me to join the Science Fair Club at Ortiz.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Garcia, President Noble, and members of the board. My name is David Lopez, and I'm a 6th grade student at Ortiz Middle School. I had the chance to work on an engineer project in Ms. Melanger's class. The goal of the project was to build the strongest bridge. Each team got 101 popsicle sticks and a small bottle of glue. My experience working with this project in class was fun because my team and I talk and create a blueprint together. We help each other and put the pieces together like a puzzle. Our teacher explained to us that we were supposed to use the appropriate materials and follow directions. We were lucky to get some engineers to come to our class to explain to us what is the role of an engineer and all the types of engineers. I was impressed and inspired by the engineers. They inspired me to do a better job at creating my bridge. They also inspired me to become a better person in life. The most exciting part was when we test the bridges to see how much weight they were able to hold. Some bridges broken and others held over 140 pounds or 663.3 kilograms. All of this has inspired me to become an engineer. Here we have some bridges that the students designed. This is our first bridge. This was the first place. And this is our second place. And this is the third place. And we have some drawings of the bridges. We have the 3D of the first place. And we have the other drawing of the second place. And that's all.
Thank you very much. It's especially great to hear how both of you were inspired by the project. So thank you for sharing your stories with us. We really appreciate it. And Ortiz has really done a great job representing tonight. Thank you all for coming and showing us all the beautiful stuff your school has to offer. It's not even all the things, just a couple things. Bridges and choir.
Yeah. Madam President, I'd like to also recognize the principal from Ortiz, Felicia Sena. She's here today. And, you know, there's just amazing things happening at Ortiz. It's one of our best kept secrets. You know, when you walk through the halls or anything, you're at the school, it's very orderly. There's just great things happening. She's really built that program up. We now have the feeder for the medical career pathway at Ortiz, and Stephanie Gurley-Leba will be able to hopefully maybe see in a showcase when Ms. Rael gets her turn again, because all the supervisors are assigned a month, so probably early winter or early spring. We'd love to have you back and showcase some other wonderful thing that's happening at Ortiz. So thank you for your leadership, and all the teachers there and staff. Please give them my best and how proud we are of the great work at Ortiz Middle School.
Thank you very much for being here. That was really a treat. Okay, moving on to public forum. Do we have folks signed up for public forum? I think.
Dr. Ryan had it, and I know we only had one person. Or we have two? I thought we only had one. I think we have one person, or two people signed up?
You're together.
Okay, and I know I told our people that were getting awards that we would move it up, but since we didn't, I thought we only had one person, so I think we're moving okay.
And is there anybody else who didn't get a chance to sign up for public forum who wants to speak? Okay. If you would read the rules of public forum, please.
Good evening, Board President Noble, board members, Superintendent Garcia. The Santa Fe Public Schools Board of Education Public Forum Ground Rules. Please listen and speak with respect. No uncivil conduct will be permitted. Please do not discuss any specific student who is not your own. No sharing of time. Self-monitor and observe the 3-minute limit. We will give you a 30-second warning when your time is almost up. Public commentary and dialogue is allowed only during the public forum, not throughout the meeting. Please search for answers on common ground. You may speak on any topic, whether it is on the agenda or not. Your input will be taken into consideration. Please be advised that the board may discuss your issue during the meeting, but by law, the board cannot take action on items that are not on the agenda. And Board President Noble, we have 2 speakers this evening. So if you want to just state your name before for the record, and then you can have 2 separate, or you should. You don't have to share. Okay, okay, great.
Good evening. I am Carly Hausbeck. I am the program manager for the 24/7 campaign and the involvement program here.
Hi, my name is Karina Tarango. I am a senior at Capitol High School. I am here today as a member of Evolvement. I am here again because I care about making Santa Fe Public Schools truly tobacco-free. I am asking you as a concerned student to please update this district's policy. One of the main problems we saw in the policy is that it does not prohibit possession of tobacco products for visitors. Thank you for taking the time to listen about my concerns. I hope we can see Santa Fe Public Schools adopt a truly comprehensive tobacco-free policy today.
That's all we have. I know it's on the agenda and we've been here the last couple of meetings, so thank you.
Thank you for being here, and if I'm not mistaken, we will likely take action on this tonight. Okay, on to item 5, student board announcements and follow-up. Ms. Torres, I think that's you.
Hi guys. So I do have a short list today, so Sunday was Capitol's homecoming, and before that was our bonfire. And this year we have 11 students who qualify for the Santa Fe and Los Alamos Regional Honor Assemble Clinic. So we were very proud of our musical kids in that program. And today was Capitol's blood drive, where multiple students volunteered to donate. And last but not least, 3 teachers from Capitol are in the run for the Golden Apple Award. Thank you.
That was fast. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item 6, board announcement and follow-up. Are there any of those? Board Member Cashman.
I was hoping that school board member or student school board member, Ms. Torres, would mention that there are some scholarships that just opened up today. Would you like to mention that, or are you just trying to keep it close so you can win those scholarships?
I should not. So there's actually a couple that opened up today that I'm going to try very hard to get. And those are the Dells and it starts with another D. Daniels, yes. And those are both full rides to, I believe, a college of your choice.
Oh, wow.
Yes, so very, very good scholarships. And the FAFSA opened up today, too. So, all 3.
Secretary Garcia.
Madam President, I'd just like to bring this up for the record, now that Mr. Morano's actually sitting out there in the audience. I actually got this text about a week and a half ago from a colleague of mine. And it says, "Hey, Commissioner, I just want to let you know how great Mr. Moreno and Mr. G are at Santa Fe High. It seems they are here and busy and engaged all the time. I do a 7 a.m. drop-off for my daughter to do an extra AP calculus class, and I see them and both my daughters dance after school. So 3 days a week I am picking up at 6 or 7 p.m. and still can't see them, especially Mr. Morano. I can still see them, especially Mr. Morano. Whenever I see them, they are engaging students. Mr. Morano is so quick to answer questions and follow up on things. Also, the whole AP staff rock. The whole AP staff rock. Did you see their students' results from last year? Sorry for the long text, but want to let you know, Mrs. Alice Green. Thank you, Mr. Morano."
Nice to get very complimentary texts. Congratulations, for inspiring that. I also just wanted to note that this is apparently National Farm to School Month. It's kicking off this week, and apparently all our school sites are offering at least one local item each day. I'm not taking this off your announcements, am I? Okay. I didn't actually check those. October 3rd, so the day after tomorrow, Thursday, I think that is, will be the peak of the celebration with an almost all locally sourced lunch tray consisting of a burrito with New Mexico beef, cheese, red chili tortillas, calabacitas, lettuce tomato, local fruit, peaches, plums, or apples, and milk, primarily sourced from New Mexico dairies. And just, this is the kind of thing that makes my heart sing when we are sourcing our food locally for our kids, because we can. It's environmental, it's good for our economy, it's wonderful. Also, for the educators out there, Teachers Night Out is on Friday at 4:30 at CCA, and this is part of the Community Educators Network. So there's a couple things going on. There's always lots going on. It's mixing, mingling, and it's almost like a sort of informal trade show of resources. So different community partners come forward and showcase the ways that they can support teachers and educators in the classroom. It's
Free stuff for teachers, too.
Yeah, free stuff for teachers. Friday at 4:30 at CCA. Board Member Carrillo.
So I just came from the education meeting that happens at the Chamber of Commerce, and I met the new Secretary of Ed, who was a very impressive young man with a very impressive agenda. And one of the things I asked him, I said, please stay. And, because what happens is, in a state like ours, I said, don't just stay 3 years and then get recruited onto someplace else. When you have a new plan, you start implementing things. It's like people get recruited from Santa Fe Public Schools. We have success, and so bigger districts around the state and the country want them. So, but it was very informative. But vaping came up, which is why I just thought of it right now. And so I let them know that I know that the day of the legislative breakfast, which was the Wednesday after the last meeting, right, that I brought this up. But I let them know that that it's Santa Fe Public Schools and our board that, again, is leading the way on something like vaping, and that we could really use all of their support, because I met with a lieutenant governor a week ago, 2 weeks ago today, and around putting it on his call, or the governor putting it on his call to make vaping, and I did that with the American Cancer Society also. We were all at the meeting together around these issues, and to make vaping equivalent to alcohol in terms of sales restrictions, laws, everything. And so the meeting with the Lieutenant Governor went very well, and it's going to be on either one of their dockets. So we should see it this January, February, and hopefully they'll be moving on it. We're going to coordinate with the American Cancer Society on the statewide effort of school boards. So you look at all the committees that it may have trouble in, who's on that committee, and who on that committee is going to be the troublemaker. Find out where they are in the state, what school boards are in their districts, and then lobby that way, a very targeted way to do it, so that we can be really efficient in this next session. Because it was Ms. Furry, who's Julia, I couldn't remember, thank you very much. It was Julia that originally brought it up, and so I wanted to let them know how our district is always way ahead of the curve when it comes to things like this, and then also to solicit their support. So there you have it.
Okay, thank you very much. Here we are, superintendent announcements and follow-up.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I am so excited tonight to announce Santa Fe Public School students that were named National Merit semifinalists. And we have them here this evening. And if you would come forward, Malcolm I. Ellers from Mandela International Magnet School, and Rowan J. Nadon from Santa Fe High School, or is it Naden? These students have the chance to compete for National Merit Scholarships that will be offered next spring. Are you ready for this? They are among 16,000 semifinalists nationwide. So it's very exciting that we have two here from our district, and we're going to recognize them and take a photo with you. And if there's any family here, you can take a picture as well. So on October 3rd, we have visits with the PED Secretary Designate, Dr. Ryan Stewart. And for the visits, Dr. Stewart is interested in STEM, career technical ed. We're going to start the day at 8:30 with a press conference at Sweeney Elementary School. That press conference is not about his visits, but rather we have a teacher who received a grant. And this teacher wrote a grant to Chevron and DonorsChoose.org as part of a Fuel Your School event. At this event, Paul Chrisman will be recognized. He's the librarian at Sweeney Elementary that wrote this proposal, and that was funded to promote STEM education at the school. And so they're actually, the PED is handling that press conference. I was invited to it, but I don't know really exactly the particulars of that event. But Dr. Ryan will be visiting classrooms at Sweeney, and then it will culminate with the librarian receiving the award. After the Sweeney announcement, the Secretary Designate will continue his visits with me and select staff. From there, we're going to Ortiz to visit the robotics and coding program there. And then from 10:50 to 11:50, we'll be at Capitol High School to see the medical career pathway. From 12 to 1, we'll be at Santa Fe High School to see the Innovation Academy, and we'll have lunch catered by the Culinary Arts program. At 1:30 to 2, we will be at ECO to see the automotive program, the SEMA partnership, and welding will be highlighted there. If there is any time at all, we want to have him get him to Milagro so that he can see that facility, but that's just sort of if he has any time left. So we're excited to host Dr. Ryan. Inside Out project installation at the Roundhouse. Remember that Salazar Elementary School was selected, and there was a lot of talk about doing it downtown, but do you remember that last year when I was talking to you about it? Well, they finally got to have an installation done at the Roundhouse October 4th. It's one day only at 10:30 with a reception following the installation. So if any of you can make it to the Roundhouse at 10:30 on October 4th, all Salazar students will be bused to the Capitol for this event. Inside Out is a global project and the result of a TED Prize awarded to the French street artist J.R. His vision is for participatory art projects with the potential to change the world. In this spirit, Salazar students will be shown in large black and white photographic portraits that celebrate their career dreams and aspirations. Over 250,000 people have participated in this massive art project in over 129 countries. So for Salazar to have been selected and to be able to do that is a big deal. National Walk and Roll to School Day, and I'm going to give you the schedules. So 8 Santa Fe Public School sites will participate in the National Walk and Roll to a School Day on Wednesday. Thousands of students from Maine to Florida to Washington will be exercising on the way to school, reducing congestion in school drop-off zones and improving the air quality near their campuses. This year participating are Atalaya, Wood Gormley, Carlos Gilbert, Aspen, EJ, Chaparral, Nina Otero, and Amy Beal. Safety vests have been provided by Elena Kayak, Sustainability Program Specialist, for any board member who would like to participate at the schools. And I think you saw your vests, they were in your boxes. Harvey McGinnis isn't here today, but I wanted to announce that he had an article in the New Mexican under Gen X, and he wrote about escaping the rabbit hole. The article explores teen access to racism on the internet through websites like Reddit. Substitute training was held on Saturday, September the 28th at Ortiz Middle School, and it was very well attended. 57 attended. There were 35 that were expected, and they'd like to do it again. This is a new effort out of doing it in this manner from the Human Resources Department. Reviewed were the substitute handbook, Power School, and taking attendance, and classroom management. And also discussed were future substitute teacher trainings and how to recruit more subs. So we continue to work on that. And then, as was stated earlier, I have a few more specifics. Golden Apple. 16 teachers from 8 different communities across the state are being recognized as finalists for the 2020 Golden Apple Award for Excellence in Teaching. This year, 88 teachers were nominated from 26 New Mexico communities. The finalists include the following from Santa Fe Public Schools: Jay Clack, Capitol High School; Chantel Dixon, also from Capitol; Richard Pittman from Santa Fe High; and Carmen Moon, also from Capitol High. A total of 7 award recipients will be selected through a rigorous process that includes side visits from the Golden Apple Selection Committee over the next several weeks. Recipients of the award receive several benefits, including induction into the Golden Apple Academy of Fellows, a generous professional development fund, and a cash prize. So congratulations to all of them. That concludes my announcements.
Good stuff. Thank you very much. Moving on to the consent agenda. Anyone want to remove anything? If not, could we have a motion?
I recommend that we approve consent.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? It strikes me we might need to vote on the minutes separately, as Secretary Garcia wasn't here for those. So let's start with, if it's friendly to the motion maker and the second, approval of A and B. Okay, all those in favor of approving items A and B on the consent calendar, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And I did just want to highlight that in that we approved $300,000 for basically enhanced security, work to install, replace, and cameras, and electronic door access card readers and running wire at various sites. So we always appreciate when our schools get a little bit safer and the work gets done to do it. So thank you. Okay, item C, approval of the minutes for September 17th, 2019. We have a motion to approve in a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? And I believe we have an abstention from Secretary Garcia. So 4 votes yes on that one. Okay, on to the action items. Action item A, first reading of amended policy 544, the general obligation bond election and charter schools. Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam President. This is the first read, as you stated, amend Board Policy 544. The reference to legislatively created charter schools is deleted to comply with the law. The term legislative created charter school does not exist in statute. However, pursuant to the law, the New Mexico School for the Arts is a state chartered school. I am going to ask our General Counsel, Josh Granata, to add any other points or change. We have with us, if you'd like to come forward and get by the podium, our bond counsel, Art Melendres, who actually worked on this. And I know that there were some questions by the board members last time. And one, this is on general obligation. I think the other one is on tax levies and elections. So I'll wait for my comments on that one. And so go ahead, Josh.
Good evening, President Noble, board members, Dr. Garcia. And just for the procedure's sake, it might be easier if we do both of these together, both policy 544 and 545. The board had already taken a look at policy 545 regarding tax levy elections and charter schools. A lot of the concerns that the board had are actually addressed in policy 544, which is before the board as well. If you take a look at policy 544, as Dr. Garcia mentioned in the second paragraph, the reference to legislatively created charter schools is deleted so that it complies with statutes. And
Excuse me for 1 second. You know what I'm going to suggest, Mr. Granata, is let's do them separately. Let's do the GO bond, let's get that done, and then let's do the levies, the tax levies, because there's a little more nuance in that one, if you don't mind.
no problem.
All right, thank you.
Additionally, I went through all of the dates to make sure that they comply with any changes to election law, and all of the dates are accurate. Board member Price indicated that the board doesn't meet in July, so we changed the July meeting to August. And so if the board has any questions regarding this amendment, this policy in general, I think that Council Arthur Melendez will be the best to handle some of those questions.
Okay, Secretary Garcia, and then Board Member Cashman, and then Board Member Carrillo.
Madam Chair, so does this actually, board policy amendment, is it in accordance with what the state legislature passed? So do we have to do this? And if so, why is it just the New Mexico School for the Arts and not any other charter school?
I need to clarify something, if I may, though, Madam President. Mr. Garcia, the changes that you're seeing is the only change in the red. Our policy was already in compliance with the new elections law, okay? And so it was only that piece, and that was, at the last meeting, I explained that the School for the Arts came to us and said that that language should have not been in there. And so there was a meeting with the School for the Arts, our previous general counsel, I believe, Lisa Sullivan, and our board counsel, Mr. Melendres. In the interim, when Ms. Sullivan left and Mr. Granata came on board, this sort of got put to the back burner, so it's been resurrected now, okay? And so the reason that we're only addressing this piece is that the School for the Arts indicated that there's no such thing as in language as a legislative created charter. Even though it was created in that way, it is considered a state charter.
So, Madam Chair, the Superintendent, so I just want to make sure that the New Mexico School for the Arts is actually going to be treated the same exact way that every other state charter school is treated under.
That's what this does.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member Cashman.
I have some questions on lines 16 through 20. The way I read it, and it could be just my interpretation of it, is it implies, and I'm just going to read it out loud so people know what I'm talking about. No later than the first business day of May, if the election is to be held in November, or a like number of days if the election is to be held at another time, the district shall send to each district charter school located within district boundaries a letter requesting a formal written statement indicating whether the charter school intends to participate in the GO bond election for which the district charter school qualifies pursuant to this policy. And what I'm concerned about in that is, why would the way that we allocate funds in the bonds are through the Citizen Review Committee. And those projects are identified and prioritized by the Citizen Review Committee, whether it's one of our own facilities or a district charter school that we have. And I don't want to give the impression that they're entitled to those funds. They're not. They get prioritized just like us, so they don't automatically get part of the bond. They may some election years, they may not some election years. So when I read this, it doesn't seem to me very clear cut, and it seems to me that it could leave the impression that we are entitled to part of the bond, and they're not necessarily entitled to part of the GO bond. The committee sits, looks at all projects. So the project that we did with ATC, for example, based on the needs that they had and all the other needs, the Citizen Review Committee prioritized the projects. It wasn't that ATC, and right now we only have ATC as a district charter school. Each time, they're not going to be given a part of that bond money. They will have to be in, their projects will be judged, evaluated. So I'm thinking that maybe we need to change the wording a little bit, because at least my interpretation from reading it as a layman is, if I was reading this, I'd say, I'm entitled to part of your bond, Santa Fe Public Schools, and they're entitled to maybe get some money from us if their project is ranked, but it doesn't mean that they always. So does that make sense to what I'm saying to board members? I don't know, maybe it's just me because I'm not a lawyer, but I don't like that wording, because I read it as a layman, that they could say we're entitled every time you go out to a bond to get some of that money. And that's not the intent, I don't think, of this board.
Yep. On that point, Board Member Carrillo.
Just kind of, it's the sentence, charter school intends to participate in a GEO bond election, as opposed to maybe proceeds from the GEO bond. It seems, I mean, glad you brought it, because it seems fuzzy. Because sometimes projects aren't named. I mean, some projects are named, and sometimes the CRC, as you well know, and Rudy, all of us well know, we've been there, sometimes things are added. But I wouldn't want it to seem like either that they have a right to bond funds each cycle.
Also, Madam Chair, just on that note as well, is amended board policy 545 tax levy elections. Is that actually a state statute, or is that actually what the board actually adopted and determines what this policy?
We're the one right before.
Sorry.
One right before.
And that was what Dr. Garcia had said, let's
That's why I want to
consider
keep
them
them
one at a
separate.
time, even
But-
though they are clearly related.
Madam President, if I may.
Please, Dr. Garcia.
I'm not an attorney. We got all those attorneys here, but I'm just going to jump in here. If you look at the very beginning, it says may be eligible. If you look at line 7, only district charter schools may be eligible to receive proceeds at the discretion of the district from a successful GEO bond. State charter schools are not eligible to receive GEO bonds and are not eligible to be on the district's GEO bond election ballot. I think line 6 through 10 clarifies both of those issues that you were bringing up.
Well, then I guess I want to make sure of that, because we're not lawyers here. And so I want to make sure that later on, there doesn't give a suggestion that they would be entitled to part of that bond. And I don't know why we would even have to ask them. You know, they are required to submit their facility master plan to us, and then it gets ranked. So
Madam President? So I'm just going to ask you, would you agree that items 6 through 10 clarifies that the district charters may be eligible and that the state charters are not eligible for GEO bond? And there's like 3 lawyers over there, and I see 2 heads shaking yes. Do I see 3? So I think they agree with me. And then, what was the other area that you asked about? What line is it?
So then it's line number, starting on 16 through 20, but
So
it's
then it
really
says-
19, that why would they be notifying us that they intend to participate in the GEO bond election?
Well, they're asking, that doesn't, but you always go back to the first part that they may. It doesn't say it's automatic. And,
wanna be
but is
clear.
it in statute that we need to notify them? So I think that's why it's there.
Okay.
It's in statute.
All right, I mean, I'm just concerned, so if the lawyers are saying, I want you to be saying that, 2 years from now, when we have another bond, that you say, no, you can't read, because I know laymen think
6
of
and 10
the
covers it.
shall meaning something compared to lawyers saying shall means something totally different than what we think it means. And shall and will and all of these things, so if that's okay and you're all comfortable from a lawyer standpoint, I'm just being an amateur lawyer up here.
It sounds like the key phrase is at the discretion of the district.
Yeah, I want to make
There.
sure.
Secretary Garcia.
Just, Madam President, as Vice President Price said, whenever you get 3 lawyers to agree to something, that's very good. And I'd actually like to welcome Mrs. Paula Tackett for being here. Mrs. Paula Tackett has the utmost experience at the state legislature, but welcome. And with that, I'd like to make a motion for approval.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. So now I'd like to move to 545, and I do want to make a comment on this one. So this amends the tax levy elections in charter schools. This is a second read. Paragraph 2 is amended by deleting the last line, which reads as follows: legislatively created charter schools are not eligible to be included in HB 33, SB 9, or ETN, and are not eligible to be on the district's tax levy election ballots. That needed to be taken out because that is in contradictory to the law. And what we found out, and I just want to clarify because Mr. Garcia was not here, and then I think Ms. Price wanted to be clear. So I know that Ms. Cashman brought up, and she was concerned that maybe we had done a bait and switch with the public. We did not. What we found out is that when Mr. Halford explained it to me, because he was the interim CFO, when they took the question to the county clerk, she said, you have to include the School for the Arts in the ETN election. And so, and that was, then we went back and looked at our printed materials of when we advertised the bond, and so we didn't. It included New Mexico School for the Arts there in our advertising. And then I looked at the materials that we presented at the breakfast, remember the ETN breakfast? And it had the charters and it had New Mexico School for the Arts. So the public knew what they were voting for, but we weren't. Our intent was to follow your policy as it was written at the time. The county clerk caught it, but I was in a whirlwind. I didn't even think about this policy. So I apologize that I didn't let you know, but as it turned out, we followed the law. So this correction here puts us in alignment with what's in state statute. And the only things that were changed were what I just stated to get us in compliance with the law. And then the change on page 2, number 6 of your, just to be in alignment with when we meet, since we do not have board meetings in July.
Board Member Carrillo.
Make a motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Secretary Garcia, we say, is the second. Any further discussion? He's fast. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you for being here, all you legal beagles.
Yeah. Nice to see you, Mr. Melendres. Yeah. Okay, we are on to item C, the first reading of amended policy 601, tobacco products and contractors, volunteers, and visitors. Dr. Garcia.
So thank you, Madam President, and I'm going to ask Mr. Granata to come back up. So what it turned out is that we already had the tobacco product policy in place for staff. It had already been there about possession. So the only thing we're adding here are visitors. And so Mr. Granata came up with this language that we think meets the spirit of the act that the students wanted us to look at. And Mr. Granata.
Thank you, President Noble, board members, Dr. Garcia. As Dr. Garcia said, the two other policies with regards to to students and staff both already prohibit the possession of tobacco products. And so before you, we have policy 601, which addresses volunteers, contractors, visitors, other folks who come to our schools. And as you will see, the language that is added states possession of tobacco products by visitors, including volunteers and contractors, which disrupts, impairs, interferes with, or obstructs the mission of the district is prohibited. And so that language would essentially prohibit any type of tobacco possession that's going to interfere with the educational process.
Secretary Garcia.
So, Madam Chair, Madam President, I realize this is the first reading, so this is an action item. So any contract basically means anybody that sets foot on campus. Is that correct? I look at contractors as into a plumber, electrician. So is anybody that sets foot on campus?
Yeah, basically anybody who steps foot on campus, this policy would apply to.
Thank you. So, Madam Chair, if this is an action item, I know it's a first reading, but move for approval.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Board Member Carrillo.
So we were talking about the AR last time, right? So we're.
Yeah.
Oh, we're at the administrative reg. Okay, so first off, obstructs the mission of the district. So I don't have it in front of me. You know, there's a mission of the district, right? It's a mission statement. So somebody bringing a vaping device to a football game, and it's just in their car. I'm just wondering how the enforcement piece works. I mean, I support all this. I support a zero tolerance on all this stuff. It's all poison.
So Mr. Granata wrote this in a manner that we feel meets the intent for visitors, but makes it enforceable, because it would be very difficult, and we've talked to security, we've talked to our police department, Mr. Salvidres, who has tremendous experience in this. You know, we're not going to be obligated to be searching cars. We're searching people's bags or backpacks, the visitors. We've already had this policy in place for adults. So this includes visitors and puts us in compliance. Not compliance, but puts us in, because we have a smoke-free, always have had that policy. And we've always had no tobacco products for our volunteers, for our contractors, our employees. Where the hole was on visitors. And that opens up a whole can of worms. But if someone is smoking during a game, that's disrupting our co-curricular activity, and then I think we are in our rights to say, you need to leave. But, you know, if they have it in their possession, but they're not bothering anybody, these visitors who are on campus, they're not bringing it out, or they have it in their car, it doesn't put us, if someone says, oh, I saw a pack of cigarettes in Mr. Carrillo's car, we don't have to go and search the car. And so I thought it was very well crafted, Mr. Granata, because we were in a conundrum of how to deal with this.
Further, I would ask, because our partners from the American Cancer Society are here, who are representing the 24/7 policy, and I would just, because we wanted to be a part of this, I mean, because so many other districts are, and I would say, does this satisfy, and I showed them the language, because I don't want us to not be a part of this. You have to come up here and introduce yourself and.
I'm Carly Houseback again. To clarify, we are funded through the Department of Health, not the American Cancer.
Oh, sorry.
Just to clarify. But yeah, so I think possession is the correct wording. However, like, it is included in all forms, so I don't know what the limitations of that wording would include in what you're saying. But to interfere with the destruct or interfere with the mission, we just don't want them to possess it at all. To be completely comprehensive, it's just under, and I understand the concerns in enforcement, but yeah, that would be the concern.
On that point, Madam President, so we define tobacco products, including cigarettes, cigars, pipe tobacco, chewing tobacco, dipping tobacco, snuff, nicotine, nicotine delivering devices, electronic cigarettes, vaporizer, nicotine delivery devices, liquid nicotine containers, electronic cigarettes, vaporizers, smoking devices, and other chemicals or any other devices that contain tobacco or nicotine or are designed to or manufactured to imitate any of these products, regardless of whether it contains tobacco or nicotine. So it covers everything.
3 times over on nicotine delivery devices, I think.
I mean, I guess I have a question. Like, if a person were to have it possessed on them, but they didn't have it out, would it be allowed?
This is for visitors. It's already not allowed for students. It's
Right,
not
yeah,
allowed
for
for
staff.
employees.
So if a visitor had it on campus at a football game and it wasn't out,
If they are not disrupting the educational process, because we do have issues around enforcement. Now, we will have the signs up, but we are not in a position, and Mr. Granata was very careful, because I think some other districts that may have it, may have maybe put some statutes that really don't support what they say they're doing. And so we feel like this is very legal. It meets what you all want, to not have tobacco on our campus. We are gonna change our signage, which we might wanna talk to Department of Health, that they might wanna help us fund some of that. But we believe this is in full compliance.
and I can take it back to the team at the Department of Health and have them review it, if that would be appropriate.
Can vote tonight, right? Because I was still going. Was this,
Yes, let's let Vice President Price speak on that point, please.
If someone has tobacco on their person, unless I search them, I don't know that they have tobacco on their person, so we can't cover that. And we're not going to search them. If they take it out, that's an entirely different, that's a horse of another color.
Board Member Carrillo.
So I think the short answer is yes, it's covered, because we won't know anybody has it. And we're making it clear with our signage and our rules that it's not allowed. Now, if they break the rules, we're gonna kick them off our campus.
Secretary Garcia and then Student Board Member Torres.
Thank you. So I was a little confused. So is it going to be the security guards who are going to inform volunteers that they can't have any nicotine or any of those products on them at, say, at football games? Or who would it be?
It's not volunteers. Well, volunteers are already notified.
Okay.
When they have to follow all of our policies. Our signage is what will notify visitors, because we're going to have tobacco, right now I think it says no smoking, I believe, right?
Tobacco-free
Or tobacco-free zone. Well, then I think our signage is already covering it. But we might, make announcements at events, do other things. We'll probably send out something to our parents. Every time we amend a policy, I send it out to the district.
And if students are found with these and say teachers see them in their backpacks or in their pockets, are they allowed to take them from the students?
Yes, currently students are not allowed to have tobacco on the campus. That's why the principals take away their vaping pipes and their cigarettes. So that's already happening. It's a constant problem, which is why Mr. Morano and other principals have had concerns, because students vape in class, right?
Yeah.
And taking away the devices. So, yes, they're not allowed to have it.
How are the teachers informed about this? Because I don't see it enforced as much as I would like to. And so I would just want to know.
Well, we will set, the only thing new in this policy is, relates to visitors. This policy has been in place for a long time. And the principals are responsible for ensuring that the teachers are following the policy. The supervisors are in charge of the principals to ensure they're following the policy. So, Mr. Chavez isn't here right now. He supervises 2 of the high schools. Ms. Wagner supervises the principal at ECO, and Ms. Singh supervises the principal at Mandela. So we'll discuss this again at SS Cabinet to really push that our principals enforce it.
Okay.
And that the teachers are supposed to be enforcing it as well. That is their responsibility.
And are students allowed to go to teachers to say if they see this in the halls and I don't know, I can give you a scenario. So there was visitors one day, and then there was a student who did this in the hall. Say if I saw that, would I be allowed to go anonymously to the principal and say?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Secretary Garcia.
So really quick, I think this is actually a great policy. It's like today you saw on the news where 15 determined deaths actually out of vaping in the country have been actually determined based off of vaping, which is going to get larger and larger. It's anything like from the NMAA today or yesterday issuing out a policy in regards to the parents that are actually a little bit loud out there for their students, and it's an educational piece that we all have to figure out how it works, how we're gonna learn it. As the captain, the ex-captain knows, captain correct, ex-captain knows, you know, it's like speeding. Don't speed, people still speed. It's like, you know, you have the county buildings, don't smoke within 15 feet, people still smoke. So we're actually moving forward on a positive note, so it's gonna be a little bit challenging how we enforce it. There's nothing written in stone, but I think this is a good policy, so once again, I don't know if I need to make a motion for the first reading for approval.
We have a motion and a second, if I'm not mistaken. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Granata, for threading the needle. Moving on to item D, under action item 9, number 9, 2019-2020 Board Committee appointment to CRC by Board Secretary Rudy Garcia.
Madam President, I'd actually make an appointment for this gentleman. Actually, he has a lot of experience in projects, probably for the last 10 years, and has done a lot of maintenance in facilities, has done a lot of project management, construction. His name is Philip Montano.
I have a question for Mr. Garcia.
Please.
And this was discussed the other day. My understanding is that Marty has also, it's on, that Marty has been attending the meeting, so will she continue also?
Madam President, Mr. Superintendent, so Marty's position is up, so actually I'm going to replace Marty with actually with Philip Montano. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so I believe you would make a motion.
So move.
All those in favor for this board committee appointment to the CRC for Secretary Garcia, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
May I have the name again, please?
Philip Montano. And I'm guessing Secretary Garcia will provide contact information for him. On to item 10, board discussion and possible action. SFPS Aquatic Facility. Board Member Carrillo.
I have that and then a couple to follow. So on the aquatic facilities, we were, I don't know, it was 2 or 3 weeks ago that I asked to have this on because of the articles that were in the New Mexican relative to the Chavez Center closing for certain things, having certain events, and that it's getting increasingly difficult for our kids, our swim teams, and to have a place to swim. And it would seem that we may, and I would suggest that maybe the CRC start to take this up. Let's have an aquatic facility for Santa Fe Public Schools. I have no idea where it's going to be located. And maybe, you know, I think if you try to instantly put something at Santa Fe High, you're going to get a lot of pushback. But I think it's just something that we really need to start thinking about. And that way we don't have to keep asking permission. We don't have to pay. We don't have to also displace others that may want to be using a facility. And it will allow our swim programs to grow, which we always want more athletic programs. So that's why I have it there. You guys have any thoughts on this? Miss Cashman with the Cashman Courts?
Board Member Cashman.
Yes, I do have a lot of thoughts on it. My students have participated in various swim programs since they were tiny little kids, and they also swam for the high school. Right now, if I'm not mistaken, there is only one high school that actually has a pool, and that is the Albuquerque Academy. It can't be any type of pool. And so this is where I think we would have to be building another Chavez Center. You have to have so many lanes. The lanes have to be so long, you know, and I don't think that's, and the biggest thing, one of the biggest things that the Chavez Center runs into is hiring lifeguards. They're always advertising and trying to get people. So I really don't think this is something that this district could afford, and I'm not sure that's a wise use of our money at this point. I think it's better, if we're concerned, to ask the superintendent to work with the city on how best to have our teams swim, but also how to be conscious of the need for the community. Now, I know right now the pools are off, there are various pools that are offline, Salvador Perez is going to be offline. Was supposed to be up in December. It's not going to be now until February. Fort Morrissey, which would never be used for us swimming because it's too small of a facility, not enough room. So I'm just not sure we can afford to build a complex like what Albuquerque Academy has, which is state-of-the-art. It's a beautiful facility, but they also have a lot of money out at the academy when tuition, at least a few years ago, was $22,000 a year for each student there. So I'm just not sure this is, at this point in time when we have so many other great needs on our facilities, that this would even be worth spending time for staff to research it, cost it out, because we're really talking an Olympic-sized pool. And there've got to be multiple lanes, and the maintenance on those pools is pretty expensive. The city has trouble keeping up with maintenance on those pools, and even though we could rent it out to the other high schools that also swim, like Monte del Sol and St. Mike's and everything, I think we're all sort of adjusting as best we can. And also, if we do swimming, we also have the other problem is because we have swimming and diving, the diving requirements are different. So the pool has, the pool's got to be a certain depth for people that dive. And so I'm not in supportive of doing this right now. I love the idea, but I just don't think financially this is a wise use of taxpayer funds at this point, but maybe to have a conversation with the city, how can we both be better partners? But there's limited hours. I mean, again, it's like any facility. Everybody wants to use it before school starts. Some of the other swim teams in the city are using it. We tend to use it after school gets out, but that pool is, and we definitely would not want our kids to be going in the middle of the day when they should be in classes.
Secretary Garcia.
Madam President, Board Member Cuddy, I think it's an excellent idea. I agree with Mrs. Board Member Cashman as into, this is interesting. In the last week, I've asked people, they say the Chavez Center. I said, well, what is it called? They said does anybody know who Genoveva Chavez was? Genoveva Chavez was probably the first mariachi lady in the city of Santa Fe. And so whenever people say, they say, don't call it the Chavez Center, call it the Geneva Chavez Center, but it's Genoveva Chavez Center is actually named after a lady that actually was probably one of the first mariachis in the state of New Mexico, probably in the whole Southwest. And so going back a little bit as into whenever individuals were involved in it was probably the 2000 bond that the city of Santa Fe actually approved for the Chavez Center. Great facility, awesome facility. However, I feel that the city of Santa Fe has a little bit of challenges. It actually takes a lot to maintain a swimming pool. It takes a lot to maintain, and they're doing an excellent job. And I think Board Member Carrillo, excellent idea. However, I think we have a little bit of other interest in the school district that we need to concentrate on, that we need to move forward on. But I think it's a great idea. But as Board Member Cashman said, swimming pools are very, very, very expensive. And so at this moment in time, I would decline to vote for moving forward on this idea, but great idea.
Board Member Carrillo.
I mean, this is just for study, obviously, at this point. I would just want the CRC to look at it. I'm not saying that we need to say, okay, we're gonna have a pool and then expect it here in 2 years. It would just be, and it could, when the CRC or staff were to be able to do a study, then this is something that we can also refer to 18 months from now, 2 years from now, when maybe we realize maybe the demand is even more crushing and we say, you know what, we really need to start looking at this seriously. So at least, I mean, and if there's not support for a study right now, that's cool. I just, it occurred to me in reading and talking to people that this is something to bring up in board discussions, so I did.
Board Board Member Cashman.
And it doesn't have to be as big as the Genevieve Center. It does not, because that is a multi-use, massive facility.
No, not
It just
that-
needs
but
to
the
be an
swimming-
aquatic
but the-
center.
But the
Yeah.
aquatic center is gonna
No.
have to be as big as that aquatic center, and that's a very expensive pool to maintain. And the reason why I would not agree to have a study now, even if we would use it in future, we'd have to redo the study, and right now, CRC needs to start, and starting in January, I would say, we're going to need to start looking at the bond for 2021. And as you know, having sat on that committee, it takes a lot of time for CRC and the staff to put together all the documents that we need to get all the analysis. So I just think it's the wrong time. And you know me, I would love to have it, just like I'd love to have a performing arts center for this district. But right now, we can't sort of get there, at least in my opinion. But good idea, but just...
Vice President Price.
I went to a high school with 9,000 students with 3 other high schools within walking distance. And we had 5 swimming pools. And we had a number of suicides. No matter how hard you try, you can't 24 hours a day maintain surveillance on those things. And yes, indeed, the reason why we had so many swimming pools is that in order to graduate from high school, you had to pass a swim test. So you had to take swimming. So if you're going to require that, then you have to have the pools, and you have to have the lifeguards, and they have to be certified, and they have to be secured. I mean, it's a nightmare. And it's buku expensive.
Just to weigh in, I think Board Member Cashman has summed it up perfectly. The lifeguard issue has been a limiting factor at schools, and we are experiencing a real crunch right now because there are a couple city pools offline.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
other items which we can discuss briefly, but because nothing else is listed on the agenda, I think really
Super
you can
briefly.
just raise them. Board Member Carrillo.
Okay. The first is the obvious one. I guess on the 15th, having the discussion that, Kate, you're on school population, however you want to title it, but having that on October 15th. But let's also not have it be one big euphemism. Let's have it also look at, I would say in the title needs to be possible school closure. I mean, that's the honest way to title something like that, because that is what it's about.
On that point, Vice President Price, I'm guessing.
I don't think we need to be spooking the public about school closures at this time. It requires a lot of study, it requires a lot of activity, it requires a lot of input. So bringing it to the next school board meeting to just rile people up makes no sense to me.
I would respectfully disagree, because it was the union president that brought it up, and our board member Cashman that brought it up, and then Kate as well, I'm sorry, President Price as well. I think it's better that we discuss it. You don't let this wound fester. I mean, it's like we all got a big bump on the head and we have to deal with it. And so I'd say we intentionally did not do it tonight, so I think we need to do it on the 15th. Well, actually, it's board discussion, so I'm putting it on the 15th. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. But I think the way it needs to be titled needs to be titled honestly.
Secretary Garcia.
I was not in the last attendance of the board meeting, but obviously Mr. Dillon's sitting out there. So what are we talking about?
Oh, you gotta
I
go back
understand.
and watch the video. It's really fun.
Closing school,
So if I may, please,
schools.
what we're talking about is an item that Board Member Cashman requested be on either tonight's board discussion agenda or October 15th. And for a number of reasons, some of which went away, Dr. Garcia and I had decided to put it on the 15th. So that is the plan. What I would say is that our practice is that any board member can put an item on board discussion as long as it's received in good time. So we can, if there is disagreement on how to title this, my thinking is that we all can title it, and we will group it accordingly in a way that we can as an agenda, but we can each have our name next to our preferred title for the issue, and we will discuss it as one issue. You know, to some extent, I think we had already arrived, frankly, at using both Board Member Cashman's and my preferred titling of this. Board Member Carrillo, if you want in on that, you know, it makes it slightly more complicated, but we will figure out a way to do it wherein everybody's preferred nomenclature on this issue, which in my version is about rethinking, rebalancing, reimagining our district. But ultimately, and maybe I will ask the superintendent, I wrote a thing that I posted on social media. I spent some time on this weekend, really getting clear. You've seen it, good. And I can ask Dr. Garcia to email it to the rest of the board. But, you know, I spent some time thinking about this. It is something that I believe Board Member Cashman is right to bring up and that we need to talk about. And, you know, our approaches may differ from there, but we are going to be talking about this on the 15th. It will be on board discussion. I mean, obviously, all of us can choose whether to talk about it or not, but I'm pretty sure most of us will be talking about it. Secretary Garcia.
Thank you for the answer.
Okay, two shorties. Did everybody read the article that Dr. Garcia sent to us? It was in the Journal. It was an editorial, and it was titled, "Where Did All New Mexico Students Go in New Teacher Evals?" Well, I don't know about you, but I fell out of my chair when I read the first paragraph. And in fact, the department's one-page rundown on changes under Governor Michelle Grisham's begins with, 1, student growth scores will not be included, and 2, teacher attendance will not be included. So all of us have, I mean, I don't know if all of us have or not, but I've been in management positions in the public and private sector. And how on earth are you going to ever do any evaluation where you're not evaluating performance and attendance? So and then I read the rest of the article also, and you guys can do it. And gang out there, it's in the Journal, and it's on September 30. And it's just, holy smokes, is this where they're starting from? Anyway, I was appalled. So that's why I'm bringing this up on board discussion.
Secretary. Yeah.
Just really quick on that note, Madam President, and to the general public out there, as being an appointed official and an elected official, whenever we talk about our schools, you know, individuals in my district, not too many individuals come tell me about that my schools are doing really bad. And I think as our district, I feel that our district is doing very well, because if you look at it from a nationwide standpoint, certainly the state, we don't have teachers that are standing in line and saying, I want to be an educator. And all you educators out there, excellent job. Oh my God, I stood in a third grade classroom about 2 months ago, or actually last year, just trying to get them to line up to go outside was amazing. I'm like, you're trying to line them up to go outside? I'm like, oh, whoa. And actually, Sheriff Mendoza actually talked to me about it as into being a substitute teacher. He said, you know what, Rudy, go sit in the classroom and see what it's like. And so I think our district, I feel, is doing excellent strides. And as I was quoting the paper, whenever you build a car motor or you build a restaurant, it takes a little while to get that machine going. It takes it a while to get grease. And I see what you're saying, Board Member Cuddy. I think our district, for the general public out there, we're doing good. And we're doing very well. And one of the main things is a key component to all of this district and to all of the students in the district is parenting. It's a family. Because, you know, sometimes parents send their kids to school and say, here, go take care of our kid, go this. No, our educators are here to educate your child. You know, so yeah, we all have to work together. We all have to communicate, and we all have to communicate together. It's not just the educators, the superintendent, or the board that has to get it done. It's all of us, the family and everybody else. But I just think our district's doing good, and it's going to take a little while to go a little faster, but we're doing it, I feel. Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree. I just wanted, no. But if you haven't read this yet, you got to read it. It is kind of appalling. And the second thing was, I'm always, no matter what town I live in, I always read the daily paper and the New York Times. And I think New Mexican is actually a great small town paper. Opinion section, Sunday. Did you guys read, it was Alan Richards' op-ed about the redevelopment of the whole space around the Zia station, right? And this made me think about our agreement, our supposed agreement with the city and the county around informing us when they're going to build. And I'm wondering, one, are they in compliance with that? And what makes me wonder that is because all of those apartments that are being built right now on Rodeo across from the state mental health facility or health department or whatever, you know which apartments I'm talking about though, right? On Rodeo. I don't recall us ever being notified that it's a lot of apartments are going up right there. And that's going to affect Chaparral. I think it's mostly zoned for Chaparral, but then it could also affect how we think about zoning for EJ, Nava, you know, those schools in that general area. But then my biggest concern though was, were we notified per our, I guess, handshake agreement? Okay, but
You know,
they
I'm
never
not
did
just
that.
joking.
Okay, you
It
can
is
comment on that.
required by the law.
Then great. Then were we notified as required by the law? Is that a yes? I mean, I was just curious. It made me, this piqued my interest.
So when you all discussed this, I did send a letter to Catherine Miller, and I sent a letter to, at that time, Eric, and CC'd the mayor, that we wanted to be notified. They have been notifying us of the hearings. I send them to Christy and to Gabe, and then they attend the meetings. This building is already up and going, so you probably, I don't know if you were notified back when the plans were made, you know, to even do that. Because I think from the time they do a hearing that they're even looking at a development, there's a lot of time that goes by before construction actually goes up. I don't remember anything since I've been here that was brought to my attention about that, but Ms. Wagner may have the historical or institutional memory of that.
And I would ask that if we need to revisit this, let's place it on board discussion. I think, you know, we've covered a range of issues.
Great. And then the final thing is, I'm just wanting to make sure that kids are not getting penalized for being absent for the Jewish holidays. That in terms of, I mean, it's an excused absence, of course, but we also developed, I think, a policy, it was like 4 years ago or something, that not only would it be excused, it would not count against their attendance as it relates to any contests or, you know, things like this. The chamber does that attendance thing, and this should not count against them in that.
So, Madam President?
Actually, we made that happen, so I just want to make sure it's in compliance.
Do you want that to go on future discussion item?
No, I just want you to ask.
Or do you want me to answer that later, or what do you want me to do, Madam President?
I would ask that you follow up with us at another time so that.
In superintendent follow-up? Okay.
Yes, please.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and let's remember, please, to put items on board discussion so we can notice what we're going to talk about and not get to that uncomfortable feeling.
May I ask you, Kate, can we do that by 3 instead of noon? Because the challenge that day was
I
was
have
out of
no
my
problem with
office
that. Let me
all
run
day.
it. Yeah, the idea was to make the staff's life easier. I'd like to run it by them, but I have no problem with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Because it's 3 Thursday.
Right, I
Great,
understand.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, on to advanced planning? Yes, Dr. Garcia. Is it that there's no need for a 1023 CRC meeting?
That is it.
Apparently, there's no need for a October 23rd CRC meeting, so we can strike that from our planning calendar.
And the staff already notified all CRC members on that.
Okay, thank you. So next week, audit committee, then we will be back here in 2 weeks with the item of 3 board members bringing up various different titles to be discussed in the evening session beginning at 5:30. And we will then follow with a week later with a study session of the Finance Subcommittee.
Madam President, on that
Yes,
point,
Dr. Garcia.
would it be all right if the board emails Alma what they want their title to be on this? We've heard a bunch of different things. I know we're taking minutes.
I think that's
and we're listening,
necessary, yes.
But I would prefer that if, if this is an item that you care about, that they put the exact wording they want. And then we'll put it by their name.
Thank you.
And where will this be on the agenda? Under board discussion and possible action, or
We'll
where
work
do you
on
want
that.
it?
We'll work on that.
Okay, very good, thank you.
But yes, probably on board discussion and possible action, but we may move that up, as we had talked about for potentially this meeting. Okay, anything else on advanced planning? All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.